I was at a gallery called Divarelli, which is in Pilsen. It's on 18th and Hofstede. They hosted an event by my friend Hannah, who runs Wom for Wom. So it's W, if you, to like...
yeah, to say it and spell it, two different things.
It's like woman for woman is what it really signifies. But really, it's a space for women artists, entrepreneurs, leaders, advocates, anything, or a woman identifying, to just have a space to just kind of relate, talk, have dialogue about what it is and how it is to be like a woman entrepreneur out here. Yeah. So it was really cool. I got to kind of kick off the night because there was a performer, an acoustic performer, and there was a few vendors, but I was like the first speaker. So I went right in, and I feel like I set the tone pretty nicely.
That's good.
Yeah, I set the tone really nicely. Talked about Cardi B,
nice.
Which was random, but it was also like relatable to just women, being there for women, and just my experience as an entrepreneur, because I am a photographer and an artist, but this is also my business. So there's that whole end of it that a lot of people don't talk about, especially with social media. I think a lot of people see just the pictures and just the thing, but they don't really see like the business end of what goes into it, the negotiating, and how it can sometimes be uncomfortable to talk about pricing. Yeah. Especially as a woman. I don't know if it's... I don't know. I'm not a man. I can't say, but
sure.
it is different. Having to price your work, having just to monetize every aspect of it in any way can make people uncomfortable. It's cool to have a space where you can talk to other artists openly, because also a lot of times, like, it's not that easy to just hit up a random artist and be like, hey, what do you charge for this? You know, but to have a space where it was like open and cool, if anybody had any questions, it was really awesome. And I'm hopeful that I was able to kind of give my tidbit and my advice and just my experience and share that. But I also took a lot in from the other women. There is like an author, there is an astrologist who spoke on the moon phases. There was another photographer, and a couple other ladies who kind of just started in the business, and it was just really nice. It was just a really nice space to be able to do that, and to be actually looked at as like a leader too, in that sense. It's different, and it's cool though, you know. Yeah.
So there was a couple things that you mentioned, and I want to make sure I cover them, so I'm writing them down. So if I'm ever writing, that's what I'm doing.
Cool.
But one thing that you mentioned was about like pricing, and like really in the freelance space. And I think that's actually a really important question that affects more than just women, but I can imagine it's probably even more challenging for women, because it's been shown in a lot of studies where when it comes to women in negotiation with pay and all that other stuff, that is a harder conversation, and that it seems to not go as well for women in that regard. So what are some things that you've learned in your process of being a freelancer that kind of helped you figure out your pricing of like, well, what are your rates? How much is your time worth too? Because there's a lot of time that goes in beyond just the shoot. You know, there's a lot of editing, a lot of sifting through footage or sifting through pictures, et cetera, and really then the actual editing part too.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of break that down?
Man, well, it's taken a lot of trial and error, because I've charged as low as like $50 an hour. And as high as 200. Like it depends for what though too, you know.
Sure.
And it also it gets really intricate, because some people, they hit me up and they'll be like, hey, what's your rates? But they don't really acknowledge, or I don't know, realize that there's no general rate for a photographer. It really depends on what it is that you're looking to shoot. If it's an event, how big the event is, how far the event is, how quick you want edits, like your turnaround. You know, like it's been pretty frequent lately where some people would want at least 1 to 2 photos to post social media within 24 hours, and then the rest do, you know, whatever range that you negotiate. But there is a lot of like little things like that I had to learn, because I think like in the beginning of my, you know, trials and gigs, my first gigs, I was just trying to do like a flat rate, and it really took experience to know
why you don't do
why
that.
I don't do that and why I do charge. Crazy. You know, it's separate. You charge more, you know, for editing. And
you have to.
Yes.
Yes. There's no way. All right. If I have to shoot a 3-minute video, okay, a 3-minute video, that's at least an hour and a half of just shooting. And it depends on what it is. But like, you got to think about that. Then I have to think about, okay, well, after I got to go through all that footage and I got to figure out what's useful and what isn't. And then after that, I'd have to edit it. So like, that's like 3 separate rates right there, where you have a rate for your time of actually being on set. You got a rate for your time of the after sorting of things, and then a rate for the actual editing, you know?
There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it.
People don't realize it too. So then their budget is like nothing. And they're like, oh, I want the world. Here's a penny. And you're like, well, you're not going to get that then for that price.
Yes. But there is some cases, like if it's a bigger client, I'll ask them what their budget is. Right off the bat, I'll be like, okay, well, give me the details on what it is you're looking to shoot, and also if you have a budget, because then that also helps me kind of decipher, because, you know, it's different for some clients. You know, I will be more lenient if like you don't have like big brand money. You know, I'm definitely going to be more understandable to your rates and such. So it's real different. For me, the hardest thing to price though is like my printed work. Because I do print work. I print usually on canvas, or I print on metal, and they're different. You know, it's not like your average
it's
paper.
not.
You know, print. It's a little different, and it's hard to price like what my work is worth. Like, I actually have a show coming up on Friday at the Young Chicago Authors, and it's a photography show. It's called Windows 8, features 8 photographers, and we're all very different. And because we're so different though, it's like I'm curious to see what they're charging for their work. And it was really hard for me to pick. Like, you know, because on one token, I don't want to be unaffordable. Like, really, I think it's important for households, your average household, to have art on their wall.
Yes, totally.
You know?
It's what decorates it's what gives the room personality.
Yeah. It gives a whole vibe. So like, I don't think that only if you have money that you should have artwork. Like, I want to be affordable. But I also want to give myself credit at the same time.
Yeah, not undersell yourself.
Yeah, you know,
100%.
and charge accordingly. So it's a battle that I'm still kind of, you know, teetering and seeing, and I think it's different. I'm learning per gallery. Depends. Like, you know, if I'm going to be exhibiting at like this downtown bougie gallery, maybe I'll
you're going to charge the prices a little higher.
Maybe a little higher.
And I don't think that's unfair. I don't think that's unfair at all. Know the environment. You know, if you were selling paintings in a poor part of India versus like a bougie area of Great Britain or, you know, LA or something, you're going to charge different prices. You got to know who's showing up, you know?
But so it was cool for that last panel that I was at. Someone else brought it up. I didn't even bring it up. So it's cool that I'm not the only one that's tripping about it. That's kind of like, oh shit. I'm like, cool. Other people.
That's a hard thing.
I
don't know how you would know that either. Like, unless you had a mentor who like walked you through being a freelancer. But usually the whole point of being a freelancer is that you didn't want to work for somebody. And so you went and tried to figure out how to do it on your own.
You don't have a structured guideline. You kind of create your own guidelines.
You carve your own path, which is harder, but is more fulfilling when you figure it out. It might take a while to figure it out, but then once you do, it's like, all right, cool. It's my process. I do it my way. I do it on my terms. And I know that I'm going to get my money's worth out of the time that I'm going to put into this activity.
And then also, is the deeper you go into it, even when you're comfortable with what your price, your value tends to go up though. You know, like throughout the years, your value just keeps going up. And so I would like to think, like, say 10 years from now, that my hourly rate is going to be double what it is, because I'm going to be worth more, and I'm going to have more work behind me and a bigger portfolio to kind of show.
And that's the point, right? Is that you go through it, you do it for enough time that your time then becomes worth more. The demand for your time increases, therefore you have to raise the price so that only the people that are worth your time are going to be there, you know? And that's a logical step up. There's nothing wrong with that. We shouldn't. I feel like too many people demonize that of like the rise to the top. It's like, no, that part is that's part of the journey. And if you do it the right way and you do it in an ethical way, there's nothing wrong with it. I think there's problems with hoarding billions of dollars. I think that's too much money for any one person to have. But, you know, millions, like, get your millions. I don't know. I don't have a problem with millions. It's when people start getting into like even hundreds of millions, it's probably too much money for somebody. You know? At that point, what are you trying to fill? You know?
I brought up a photographer that I've kind of looked up to, and her name is Cindy Sherman. She's a New York photographer. She started, I think, out in the 70s, and her work is interesting because it's based around self-portraits. Before selfies were ever a thing, she was doing self-portraits. And her I would say most of her whole line of work is pictures of her in different, like she'll put prosthetics on, she'll put wigs on, she'll do different makeups, she'll do different themes.
So does she transform in each one of these? Like
she
where
does.
you can't even tell it's her? Or,
yeah, some of them sometimes she has,
That's
it depends what her series is. She has like different kinds of series, and I always thought that was so cool, and she is actually to date the highest selling photographer per print. So she has a print that's of her in her earlier career that sold for $37 million. One print.
That's crazy.
And it's not like a huge, I can't say what size it is, but I want to say it's like either a 16 by 20 or a 20 by 30 kind of thing, where it's not that big.
It's not that big. No, for that much money? Holy shit.
For that much money. And that's just that one print, and it's untitled. It's literally called like Untitled number 70 something or something,
Isn't it amazing? Like something that didn't even necessarily need a title ended up selling for $37 million.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And it's also an old picture of hers. Like I think, I can't say the exact date, but I want to say it was in the 80s when she actually took it and exhibited it.
Did it get more value because it was older and because it was earlier on in her career now that she's made something later?
Maybe,
or did it sell then when she made it?
No, back then, it sold later. It sold as like her vintage work.
See, that's what I'm thinking, is that the value would increase because it's like, hey, watch, this is somebody who went on to be great, and this was maybe before they were nationally recognized or internationally recognized for being great.
Yeah.
People love that shit. People love being like, this was them before they were them. Yeah. But it's like, nah, that was still them. It's like they're just, in the process.
It's like that Kanye song. I like the old Kanye.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, actually, he's still kind of always been this guy.
He's always been Kanye.
He always was super about the fashion and like super cocky with it and everything.
Yeah, he hasn't changed that much.
He's just like millions of dollars richer and that same person.
Well, maybe a little crazier, but
fame can tend to do that.
But more or less the same DNA is there for sure, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah. But it's just any artist, period. Like even Kanye, not even as a woman, but like after a while, your work just gets more valuable and you charge more, and it almost gives me hope because I think Cindy Sherman in particular, I think she was in her 40s when that sold, and it's like, imagine like she already put in 2-3 decades of work to reach that point of like, wow, I'm gonna sell, and that's just the one. Like there's tons of other prints of hers that sell for millions and sell for hundreds of thousands. Yeah. So she's like, as a whole, she's selling a lot per print. And then I look at my little prints now, and it's like a dream, like to look up to her.
Maybe one day it'll be $37 million.
I'm like 200 at the most. That's like my highest. Right now, and one day. It's recorded,
right? It's written,
Yeah. But it's weird to think of something selling for that much money. Like
it is.
Like, can I?
Why not? Why not you? That's a question I like to ask. Like, why not you? Why not me? There's no reason. That's true. Yeah. Like, if you decide that you want to do it, then you can just do it. Yeah. That's
true. But it's like, man, like I almost feel like I can't even imagine the feeling of selling one of my prints for $37 million. I'm really trying to put myself. That'd be a
You got to visualize it to make it happen, right?
Yeah. That's true. Okay, I can see it.
You can see it.
I don't know if I want that to sell it. I don't know.
Maybe that's excessive. That might not be where you want to be. Yeah. Because you could be plenty successful and not sell $37 million print. Like you could still be a really successful artist and have other things sell for enough to pay your bills.
Yeah. I don't necessarily mean 37 million, but it's just a cool idol to look up to.
It is. No, that's a really cool North Star.